Welcome back to Old Retold. Normally, you know the drill. We grab a dusty old classic, strip it back, have a laugh, and spin the yarn fresh. But we've decided to add a little twist to the formula. From now on, once we've retold the tale, we don't just close the book, we pull the characters out of it. We sit them down, stick a mic in front of them, and ask the questions you always wanted to. Yes, you heard right. From now on, when Old Retold tells a story, we might just reach into the pages, yank out a character, sit them in the hot seat, and ask them all the questions you've always wanted to. No narrator getting in the way, no polite summaries, just straight talk with the people who lived it. Well, lived it fictionally, but you get the point. And this, by the way, is the very first one in our new series with this format. We're happy to have you tuning in for the pilot. So, for our very first guest, we've gone straight to Canada. 1920s Muskoka, to be exact. To meet a woman who went from overlooked spinster to scandalous rebel and rewrote her own story along the way. That's right. We're talking to Valancy Stirling, the heroine of L.M. Montgomery's The Blue Castle. She's here in the hot seat. Please welcome Miss Valancy Stirling. Oh, wait. I mean, of course, Mrs. Valancy Snaith.
Thanks for having me on your show, Sammy. Rebel, eh? Now that sounds right. I'll admit I rather enjoyed being a scandal. After 29 years of silence, being called a rebel felt like finally breathing.
I can't even imagine, honestly. Let's start with the bigger picture. Canada in the 1920s. What was it actually like? We hear Muskoka now and think cottages, lake holidays, Instagram shots of canoes. What was your world back then?
It was small. That's the first word that comes to mind. Small towns, small minds, small opportunities. Especially for women. There was this sense of everything being already decided for you. Who you were, where you'd live, what you'd do. The question was never, what do you want? It was always, will you do what's expected?
So basically, follow the rules, marry who you're told, and keep house until the end of your days.
Exactly. And if you didn't marry, you stayed at home and dusted your mother's doilies instead. Or polished the silver until you could see your own sorry face staring back. You were expected to be useful, but never noticed. Even something as ordinary as going to the doctor was frowned upon, as if tending to your own health was an indulgence. It was all about appearances, never about actually living.
That's grim. No Netflix, no phone, no escape, just family dinners where the main course was disapproval.
Yes, and for dessert, other people's stories picked apart to make everyone feel better about themselves. That was the only entertainment available back then.
And if the neighbours didn't make you miserable, your own family was always ready to step in, weren't they? Your mother especially. She looms large in your story. What was she really like?
My mother, she was rigid, respectable. She thought her duty was to control, to keep me proper. There was no tenderness in it. I don't remember being hugged. I remember being corrected. She didn't mean to be cruel. She believed she was saving me from shame, but she never really saw me. To her, I was obedience in a dress.
So basically, living with her was like living with a tax inspector?
Yes, but one who sighed every time you moved, as if breathing too loudly was a mistake.
And your father, we don't really hear much about him in the book. What was he like at home?
That's because there isn't much to tell. He was alive, yes, but forgettable. I don't recall conversations, only coughs and complaints about money. He ruled the house by holding the purse strings tight, but beyond that, he was more shadow than parent. Sometimes I think he liked being unnoticed, and so I learned to be unnoticed too.
So basically, the man's greatest achievement was being forgettable?
Yes, exactly. He left no mark, except in how little he cared to leave one.
That must have stung, though. Not even disapproval, just absence, which can cut even deeper.
Yes. You almost wish for criticism because at least it means you matter. But from him, there was nothing, and nothing leaves the deepest emptiness of all.
And in between the sighs and the silence came those famous family dinners. Your family dinners sound like the 9th circle of hell. What actually happened at those tables?
Silence, mostly. And when there wasn't silence, there were small cruelties. Jokes at my expense. Condescension dressed as concern. If I laughed too loudly, it was unladylike. If I stayed quiet, I was dull. I could never win.
Honestly, it sounds like every episode of Survivor, except no one ever got voted off. But while they were eating you alive, you had somewhere else to go, didn't you? Which brings me to the beautiful Blue Castle. When everything was suffocating, you'd escape in your imagination. What was your favourite version?
Ah, the Blue Castle. It was always by a lake, mist rising in the mornings, sun spilling like gold on the water, a big open fireplace, books, shelves of them, and freedom. Just peace and beauty. But it wasn't only about the scenery. My Blue Castle was everything real life denied me. It was laughter without being shushed, love without conditions, choices without permission. It was a place where I could be seen, not scolded, where I could speak and not be silenced, where joy wasn't a sin. And it was so colorful, every shade my gray life lacked. That's why the book is called The Blue Castle, because for years it was only a dream, a secret refuge I carried inside myself, which no one can take from me.
That's gorgeous. You had your own private kingdom in your head, while outside you were being treated like furniture.
Yes, the Blue Castle kept me alive when real life felt unbearable.
And then came the moment that cracked the whole thing wide open. The doctor tells you you've got a year to live, and instead of curling up in a ball, you basically go, right, stuff this, I'm done. What was that moment like?
It was like a curtain lifting. For 29 years, I'd lived in shadow, afraid of every sigh, every frown, every whispered judgment. And suddenly, I wasn't afraid anymore. What could they do to me? Disapprove. They'd done that all my life. But once I thought death was near, their disapproval lost all its power. Instead of fear, I felt light, free, as though the air itself had opened. I could breathe without asking permission. Every choice that had seemed impossible suddenly felt simple. If I only had 1 year left, I wanted it to be my year, not theirs.
So you needed death breathing down your neck to finally live?
Yes, I regret that it took so long. But that was the spark.
So once you felt that freedom, it came out first at home. At the dinner table, didn't it?
Oh, the look on Aunt Wellington's face.
Oh, to be a fly on that wall. So funny. So, through all that rebellion, you never told them the reason, did you? Why didn't you tell anyone about your diagnosis? Wouldn't that have explained your sudden rebellion?
Because if I had told them, they would have smothered me with pity and locked me away in rest cures. They would have taken even that last year of freedom from me. I wanted to live on my own terms, not in their shadow. For once in my life, I wanted my choices to be mine, not theirs.
Keeping silent was the only way to keep living.
Exactly. My silence was my freedom.
Silence was your gateway to a new life entirely, wasn't it really? But before Barney truly became central in your story, there was someone else who took your heart's focus, Sissy Gay. You went to care for her when no one else would. What did she mean to you?
Sissy was a kindred soul. The world had been cruel to her, but she never stopped needing love. Looking after her gave me purpose. For the first time, I felt I was doing something that mattered, not to please my family, but because it was right.
When she passed, that must have left a mark. I'm so sorry. Even now, it feels heavy.
Yes, losing her was painful, but it also set me free. Sissy showed me how fragile life is, and how precious love is, no matter how fleeting. And of course, she belonged to Barney's world too, the world of people the town whispered about. Through her, I was already stepping into his circle, even before I truly saw him.
So Sissy was the first step, the heart that opened you up. And then Barney was the leap. Which brings us to Barney. The town thought he was a criminal, a drunk, possibly a lunatic in the woods. What was your first impression?
That he was free, entirely himself. He didn't care what anyone thought, after a lifetime of being smothered by other people's opinions. That was magnetic.
Basically, everyone else saw a dodgy hermit, you saw man in my dreams.
Something like that.
Come on, though. You barely knew him. You just proposed. Wasn't that reckless?
After 29 years of caution, recklessness was the only way forward. I had lived so carefully, so quietly, that I'd almost ceased to exist. Every choice had been made for me. What to wear, how to speak, when to breathe. And where had that left me? Invisible. So when the chance came, I thought, why not? What was the worst that could happen? He would say no? I still lose nothing. Recklessness for once meant a life. It meant claiming something for myself, even if it shocked the whole town.
And of course, it turns out he wasn't really Barney Snaith at all, was he? Not the man the town whispered about.
No, not so much Barney nor Snaith, but the name never mattered to me. He was simply himself, and that was enough.
Still, quite the twist for everyone else. First, you scandalise the family by marrying him. Then they find out your dodgy hermit is not only respectable but richer than the lot of them. That's a plot twist Shakespeare would have applauded. But let's not forget, you thought you were dying. And then came the twist. You weren't. What was it like carrying that truth and finally having to tell Barney?
Oh, that was hard. Harder than anything, really. I'd built my whole freedom on the belief that I had nothing left to lose. And suddenly, I wasn't dying at all, which meant I had everything to lose. Telling Barney the truth was terrifying. I thought he'd hate me or laugh at me or walk away.
So not just a blue castle, but a house of cards ready to tumble.
Exactly. I can laugh about it now, but at the time, my heart was pounding out of my chest. Geez, it was tough. I felt like a fraud. And yet, he stayed. That was the miracle.
So the freedom began with a mistake, but love kept it standing.
Yes, love turned out to be stronger than fear. Stronger even than death.
So it turns out there was another big reveal and a zesty twist we should talk about. Barney turns out to be secretly rich, like mega rich. What was that moment like? Did that make you angry, hurt?
I was stunned. I thought I'd chosen poverty and freedom, and I was glad to. Finding out he was wealthy, it was bewildering. But it didn't change how I felt.
Still, you scrubbed floors in his cabin thinking you'd married a broke fella, and he was basically a Muskoka millionaire. That's cheeky.
I didn't marry him for money. I married him for freedom and for love. But gotta admit, he owes me for that one.
Oh, spoken like someone who really found her blue castle. Valancy, if you could go back in time to that timid 29-year-old version of yourself, sitting at those family dinners, biting your tongue, what advice would you give her?
I'd tell her, stop waiting. Stop shrinking. You don't need anyone's permission to breathe. Speak sooner. Laugh louder. Choose boldly. The blue castle you dream of isn't in the clouds. It's waiting for you the moment you dare to claim it.
That's it, isn't it? The advice everyone secretly needs, whether it's 1920 or today.
Yes. Life's too short for hesitation, eh?
Valancy, thank you. It's been a joy having you step out of the pages and sit with us.
And thank you. It's been strange, Vera, but lovely to be heard at last.
That was an interview with our 1920s rebel Valancy Stirling. Or, should I say, Mrs. Valancy Snaith. Well, technically Mrs. Redfern now. Name aside, she's come a long way, from quiet corners and family scorn to finding her own voice and building a life she chose. Proof that even when the world tells you you're too late, you're not. Thanks for joining us on this first Old Retold character interview. If you enjoyed stepping into the story with Valancy, stick around, because every tale we retell, there's another character waiting to be pulled out of the pages and into the hot seat. Until next time, keep the kettle on, keep the stories close, and let the past dance with the present.